I am so excited today because I am absolutely thrilled to welcome Tara Conolly-Hill, Strategic Data Analyst at RAC. She is a master at turning complex data into compelling business stories, proving that great analysis isn't just about the numbers, but about knowing how to make people care. When I first sat down with Tara to discuss this podcast, I got a glimpse into her world, a space filled with creativity, from the beautiful illustrated pictures by her grandfather and son to the way she speaks about her work. It was clear that for Tara, data is way more than just facts and figures. It's a canvas for storytelling, insight, and real influence. So, Tara, I'm delighted to have you today. Welcome to Winning Minds.
Thanks for having me.
And you're in your beautiful space that I was commenting on. I was very struck by this before.
Yes, there are lots of art. Like to keep it festive and a bit brighter than, I guess, the normal office backdrop.
Well, it looks very cheerful. So I am really excited to have you today. I would love to just launch into some of our big questions and just see where the conversation takes us. My first question is sort of deliberately cheeky, I guess. You know, you and everyone who takes part in this podcast, we've deliberately kind of found people who sit in that realm of thinking about customer, thinking about insights, thinking about influence in the business. And it's a really tough job, I think, a really, really tough job. Anyone who we're speaking to, you know, is really, really smart. You do not have to speak to you for long to see you've got kind of so much kind of creativity and knowledge. Why is it that you choose to do this? Why'd you bother?
Yeah, it is tough, like you say, and sometimes. But then, if something's not a challenge, is it worth doing? Really, I suppose. I suppose my career to date's been a bit over. Like, there's been a lot of different things I've tried my hand at. So, but always data has always been at the heart of it from where I started at university the whole way up to now. And that's kind of what kept me interested, is the fact that as long as you know how to analyze the data and get a story out of it, it doesn't really matter what the data is. So I've worked across like a lot of different industries, and I think, I mean, it's going to sound a bit strange, but I think I'm quite inherently a nosy person in a way. So I kind of stumbled across this kind of customer focus in a lot of my roles, and then that's kind of, it really like piqued my interest in a way. Like, I really like digging into trends, like seeing why people behave the way they do, and why different cohorts might behave in a specific way, and then that why how you'd speak to them about things, how you can make your product or your brand really resonate with people. Some of the sort of things I've worked on in the past, like the cycling category around the 2012 Olympics, I'm just kind of seeing that blow up and how people suddenly became really interested in it, and then be like, oh, this is really changing customer behavior and how they're engaging with like cycling as a sport, and then what that actually means for retailers and things like that. So that was like really interesting. So I think the nosiness element, kind of being like, oh, I'm kind of into cycling. Oh, I wonder what other people that are into cycling are into, before you realize that you're down like some sort of like rabbit hole of like trying to figure out what middle-aged men in Lycra are up to and how much will they actually spend on a bike. And the answer is a lot. So that's always been quite interesting to me. So now that I'm at the RAC, and obviously that's a completely different category to a lot of the ones that I've worked with before. But then the questions are inherently the same. Why should people care about us? Like, what's interesting to our customers? Like, how do we reach them? How do we show them like the strength of our brand and the services that we can provide? And then how can we measure that internally, and how can we make sure what we're doing really resonates? Because I think it can be really easy to become quite introspective when you're working with data and you understand the category that you work in. Like, consumers don't think that way. So I guess that's what kind of keeps me interested, I guess.
I think it's fascinating how you see such a sort of thread through all of your different kind of career moves and things. I mean, even when we first sat down, you know, and you said data's data. I mean, you mean that even from outside our species, don't you? Your first studies.
Oh yeah, well, I guess I've come to the RAC from a very strange path. I studied zoology at university, and I think I can't remember exactly what I mentioned, but it was probably predator prey population dynamics, and then I did a master's in ecology and environmental sustainability, and that was kind of less animal focused and more plant. So I looked at carbon sequestration in upland heath and why should we care about that. But I think that that data and how to analyze it, you obviously use statistical analysis techniques, things like that, making sure things are statistically significant. Are the trends I'm seeing real? Like that's the same when you work in retail or with like consumers and brands and things like that, because you're like, yeah, are these real trends?
My next question is to ask you to reveal some of your secrets. I am really keen to understand your perspective on what really matters when it comes to something like customer obsession. What really makes a difference when you are trying to get a business to do the right thing by customers, to feel that element of empathy and care that you've been talking about. So what are some of your secrets, Tara?
Yeah, I guess it's going to sound really cheesy, I suppose, but there was a phrase I used to use at Google where they would say, yeah, being, you should be uncomfortably excited about what you're doing. Um, so what I took that to mean is like, yeah, you've got a big challenge, but but that challenge is meaty and it's something that you're keen to get stuck into. But then yeah, not everything isn't easy, and if everything was, then where's the where's the interest in it, basically? So I guess keeping things fresh as well, I find is quite important for me anyway. I like to learn constantly. I think if you're not learning, then you're kind of standing still. So that uncomfortably excited kind of fits into that, because yeah, taking on a new challenge or trying something that you haven't done before, be it like a type of analysis or kind of an area that you're not that comfortable with, or yeah, anything really, I think is really important. Like I used to wear, because I was at Google for about 11 years, and that online just changed constantly. Consumer behavior and the way people engage with the internet, how they engage with brands through online was constantly changing. I do remember at one point we had this thing which they called the mobile tipping point. So up until that point, all of the searches, the majority of searches were happening on desktops, and then all of a sudden it switched to mobile devices, and everyone was just like, oh wow, okay, you've got to really change how you engage with your consumers because of this, because you've gone from like having a load of screen real estate and being able to put quite wordy ads and copy and things in front of people to like your phone, which is tiny and used to be even smaller. So you're kind of like, how do you engage with people on a much smaller, harder to navigate screen? How can you like get your point across? How can you be in that consideration set? And yeah, so that was like really interesting and really exciting to be like at the forefront of that sort of thing. So that yeah, there's been a lot of change in consumer behavior when it comes to digital and online, and kind of that really kind of kept me engaged and interested, I suppose.
I love that uncomfortably excited. I love that as a phrase, and I think we just so beautifully articulated just there is a challenge. I think so many people and so many kind of different businesses have, that the consumers world is big and kind of messy and ever changing, and don't get too narrowed in on your kind of little part of their world. Take that step back. I'm really interested to know how you do that. How do you sort of like exercise that kind of instinct for stepping back? What are some of your ways in which you make sure that you're sort of checking yourself and seeing the whole?
Well, part of it is that I do like to keep like things I do on like in my personal life quite broad, because I think the more people that you meet and talk to, like it means that you're not sitting in an echo chamber. Like you kind of are having experiences outside of kind of everything you focus on at work and the problems that you look at there. It kind of helps you understand like the wider consumer mindset. I guess also seeing how different people approach different problems. So I think I mentioned before, I'm a governor at a primary school, and so that's really interesting because it's completely different to what I do in my day job, but equally there are a lot of challenges. There's a lot of data involved as well, which is great. But like there are a lot of challenges that like educators will be facing, and it's like how do they engage with like the parent body or the student body and things like that. And you're like, okay, well, they're consumers of the education system. How do they engage? How do they kind of work with difficult people? It's like it's similar but different to how are like how brands will engage with people that they want to buy things. So I find that sort of thing is kind of keeps me grounded, I suppose, in a way, but grounded in the real world as opposed to just the kind of the very small but and focused world of like the company that I work at. So I suppose, yeah, seeing the bigger picture is it can be hard, but yeah, you do need to take a step back and be like, oh, there's some terminology that I'm using that is probably everyone around me understands it. But as soon as you mention that to somebody on the street, the eyes will glaze over and they're like, I have no idea.
I want to move on, and I want to ask you a question which I'm deliberately phrasing in the present tense, which is what hurts? What are you sort of in the middle of working out or pivoting or kind of wrestling with, or maybe a kind of a bit of experimentation?
I guess it's one that, yeah, is always ever present, but it's kind of how do you find the so what in the data? Like how do you find and secondary to that, because that's not the main issue, it's like how do you then make people care about that? So I guess that's always been kind of a crux of the roles I've done quite a lot, be it the governor stuff, but also in work, trying to convince your stakeholders that what you're saying matters, they should care about it, and they should actually take an action off the back of it, because it's all well and good taking something like spending a long time on some analysis, you get this beautiful slide deck, it's lovely, it tells a great story, it's got a thing at the end where it says, okay, and then if you do this, you'll get that, and then nothing happens, and there's nothing more frustrating than that, I guess. So yeah, making sure that you're able to build, or that I'm able to build a story in a convincing enough manner, and also that I'm working on the things that matter to my stakeholders, but also to the wider business. It can be really easy to get bogged down in just being busy and producing things for the sake of producing things and just kind of fluff. But I guess, yeah, it's always remembering what the actual organization's goals are, and making sure what you're doing aligns to those, and the recommendations you're making will support that, because you can make some great recommendations, but if they're not in line with what the higher ups think, then what's the point, because they're not going to listen to you. So I guess, yeah, finding that so what and making it count, but then also being able to, like I say, distill things down into a pithy, easy to understand kind of narrative, because it can be very tempting to hide behind data and be that on like massive slide decks, or just be like, oh, I did all these charts and they show loads of things and numbers are going up, look, great, listen to me. But yeah, that's if that's not giving them what they need to know to make sound business decisions, then it's all a bit superfluous, I suppose. So yeah, I guess making sure that I know that I'm working on what matters, that's always one that, yeah, you can find you've got an amazing project, you've put so many hours into it, it's looking great, and then they change their strategic objectives, and all of a sudden what you've been working on probably doesn't matter quite so much anymore. So that can be a bit painful. But yes, I guess then just making sure you're like, oh, okay. Then you take your step back and think, oh, does this actually align to anything? Does it still match what we're trying to do as a business? Probably does. So let's carry on with this, or let's pivot it in a way that you're presenting solutions to something that people actually care about. So yeah, I guess, yeah, finding the so what is usually the bit that can be painful, I suppose.
I think what's so interesting about that, it is one of your big secrets is taking a step back. And so I guess there's a moment whereby you've got to hold your nerve a little bit, because there are moments with some of the things you're doing where there maybe isn't a definite so what. You're just making sure that you're sort of exercising that kind of customer instinct. You're just sort of stepping back and seeing the big picture. There might not be a kind of perfect line. And so they're in the moments where you've absolutely got to find those, and the moments where actually you've just got to soak it in must be a bit of a challenge.
I think, yeah, being able to take a step back and assess what the business needs from you and from the team that you're working with, and how what you're doing fits into that bigger picture. Yeah, that's always important, but it can be painful because like I said, you can have some amazing analysis and some great insight, and it's just not the right time for that. And it's something that, yeah, you sometimes have to play the long game, I think, with a lot of these things, because maybe you're just like, the organization isn't quite ready for what you want to say to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And this may lead us on very nicely to my final question for you, or you might have a different kind of perspective on this one. And that is, how will you keep winning? What do you think the sort of secret sort of sauce, the quality, the kind of mindset that people need to win, to get businesses to care, to do the right things for customers?
Um, I guess, I think for myself, like, if I think of it as a personal, how am I going to personally win? It's that thing I was saying around like continual learning, because I think once you stop and stand still, everything keeps going. So you need to stay hungry. You need to stay engaged. You need to really care about, like, I'm happy to buy into whatever category it is, because if I don't, then, and I don't care enough, I won't do a good job. So I guess, yeah, keeping that passion alive for what you do, and kind of striving is really important. But I guess that's probably the same for brands as well. It's like, you can't just rest on your laurels, or kind of not adapt and change, and not listen to the market and the signals that you can see out there, because there's so many things that push and pull people's spending power, and how they feel about the world, and how they feel about what they're going to spend their money on. I remember worked with a lot of fast fashion brands, and it's kind of like, well, how do you carry on with that model when people are suddenly so focused on sustainability, and so focused on maybe like the humanitarian side of where your products are coming from? How can you show that you're a caring, conscious brand that doesn't buy into some of the maybe bad practices that people might think you would? So I guess, yeah, the kind of continual adaptation and continual learning, and being open, I think, is very important. And I guess I'm going to sound like a broken record, but yeah, being able to take that step back, or at least having people in the organization that enable you to do that, like to take a step back and to see the bigger picture, because no one operates in a silo. Like, you're part of a bigger puzzle of the kind of the overall consumer landscape. And yes, the brand is very important to the people that work there, but how do you get that passion out there to your consumers? Because and that kind of genuine, kind of like, yeah, that feeling of being genuine, because I think a lot of that resonates quite well with people. So yeah, I guess, yeah, I think passion and continual learning, but then being able to take that step back and see the bigger picture and how you fit into it, and being humble, because yeah, you're not the biggest part of anyone's life, really. So kind of trying to help people and show them that that's what you're doing. You're trying to make their lives easier, or you're trying to give them a thing that they need or they want, and that you're going to do that the best way possible and in a sustainable manner, and all of these things that people care about, depending on who your target audience is. I think that's probably how people will be able to cut through. being adaptive as well.
Well, hey, brilliant. I mean, I said this when we first sat down, didn't I? That at the end of that, I feel so energized after talking to you. I think that like having that blend of being really passionate about what you do, but not to a sort of like sickly kind of over positive. You sort of see all the moving pieces, and I think just really inspiring to listen to you speak. Thank you for joining me today, Tara.
Well, thanks for having me.